Hey, my name's Travis Bull Johnson. I'm running for Congress against Michelle Fishbach.
There's no money in ending war. There's no money in limiting government.
No more.
To me, part of what makes America great are our small businesses, our small farms, and that's what's getting squeezed out by the establishment politicians.
That's why I say, raise cattle, not taxes. Hey, my name's Travis Bull Johnson.
Hey, good morning, folks. This is Bull. Welcome to episode 36 of Independent is Power. Quite a bit going on this week. I spent a little bit of time testifying before the Senate this week, or the state Senate, as to some of their changes that they were looking at making as far as political parties, as well as numerous omnibus bills got voted on and pushed forward, including elections and ag. Which was going to have a lot to do with what goes on in here in rural Minnesota. First one I want to talk about is let's talk a little bit about this hearing I participated in. What the Senate was proposing to do is change Minnesota law, and we've talked about before what they're looking at doing with raising the limit to 10%. From 5% for major party status. What we found out this week is that when we went up there and we testified last time for the bill, and the noise we made and everything we got going on with that, is that we had an impact. This session they had this week, and this bill they proposed was actually an attempt to walk back that 10% back to 5%. While still addressing their concerns as spoiler candidates. And what they proposed was that for every major party, in order for a candidate to run under that major party, that candidate would have to do one of two things. They would either have to go to the nominating convention and earn at least 30% of the votes at the nominating convention, or they would have to go through the same ballot signature process as minor and other third parties do. And then they would require the state chair to certify that these people who had run under the nominating conventions had actually received 30% and authorize them under the ballot under their name. Would that have solved their question with spoiler candidates? There's a good chance it would have. Where this bill ran into an issue is the Democrats and the Republicans started realizing how much power they were given to their own chairs. And all of a sudden, especially the GOP was not real comfortable with this solution at all. I mean, they're completely happy with having the third parties go through this procedure. But when it came to giving their own chair, Chairman Hahn, that much power, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we don't want to take it out of the people's hands, which has been a fairly consistent argument there. So I can't say that they changed their view all of a sudden. They have actually been the GOP has actually been one of the bulwarks against this jump to 10% and so forth. But what caught us on this is when they presented this bill, they admitted, hey, this is a more elegant solution than raising the minimum requirements from 5 to 10%. As the hearing went on, as questions started getting asked, as stuff started getting pushed, the chairman, basically admitted they were told to find a more elegant solution than 10%. So I am not sure exactly where that came from. Who told what, or whether it's our letter writing or online posting to battlefield senators lost the support where they couldn't get this through, which is very possible. But whatever, it was a blow towards their attempt to raise this to 10%. It's not dead, not by any stretch of the means, because the House actually did pass that 10%. So now basically they're going to take the House omnibus bill and the Senate omnibus bill. The House bill included that 10% language. Senate did not. and now they're going to try to combine these two bills. So we don't know what's going to come out of it. So that's going to be kind of interesting, but it does show that we made a difference. Which honestly, after I had testified in the last committees, I didn't know we did. I came out of there feeling like, man, they didn't even listen to us. But we actually got confirmation directly from the chair saying, yes, we had to change this because of the testimony that occurred last time we had this hearing on the 10%. So it does show that your voices do make a difference. They can be heard. So that was one of the big things that happened this week. Now, the other thing that happened with this omnibus bill passing, and this is one of those things I very much disagree with, is Minnesota has, through the legislator, has agreed to go to the National Voter Compact, Popular Vote Compact. Basically means that however our state ends up at the for a presidential election, say we vote for candidate B, a majority of our people say candidate B won, but the nation as a whole votes for candidate A, our electoral college votes will not go to the candidate that we chose. They're going to go to the candidate that the nation chose as a whole. This is not quite in effect yet. Basically, this compact is on hold until states equivalent with enough oomph to provide all 270 electoral votes sign up. Once they all do that, now this compact becomes effective. And basically, it's going to remove any candidates push to come to a non-populated area. So, I mean, you get a small state like South Dakota or North Dakota, they will never see a presidential candidate. There is no reason to. There's no votes to be gotten there. They're going to spend all their time in New York, LA, Atlanta, where they can get the most bang for their buck. So they're going to avoid the small states. They're going to avoid flyover or rural country. And I've got a problem with that. I mean, that's not the way our Constitution was originally set up. Or let me rephrase that. The Constitution was actually set up to say, hey, states, you do how you want to do. So is it constitutional? Yes. I also firmly believe it is against the original intent, so that that things are set up now the way they are now, so that small states or less populous states, should I say, would have that would have a equal or a stronger footing. Daniel asked me, what about Tucker Carlson? How free is our news? How do you get heard if the system is rigged? Well, I mean, as far as Tucker Carlson, Fox is a private organization. They can hire who they want. They can fire who they want. A reporter does not have a right to be on a network. So, I mean, by all means, Fox has the right to say, no, this guy is not going to be, we're not going to use this guy anymore. Will he land somewhere else? Of course he will. But if you look at the whole reasoning behind the firing of Tucker, a lot of the real reasons wasn't Dominion. It wasn't any of that. It was basically he badmouthed his own boss. His own bosses he badmouthed and criticized. I mean, if you go to work and you start talking shit about your boss, how long do you think you're really going to work there? In the car business, we had a saying: you're only around as long as your worth, your bullshit does not overexceed your worth. In other words, if you were a 20-car salesman and you were selling everything in the world, you could pretty much go in the general manager's office, shit on his desk, and he'd look at you and go, "What's wrong, bull? What can we do to help you out?" Now, if you did that after selling 1 or 2 cars a month, they would escort you out in handcuffs, because your worth was worth putting up with your bullshit when you sold 20 cars. It wasn't when you sold 1. Say that's not what you meant. They don't want real reporting. They want bias. Well, Daniel, my response to that is Fox lost almost $800 million based off of what Tucker was saying. Was he reporting the news, or was he reporting a side angle or something else that he couldn't prove? I mean, they were basically held liable for lying about Dominion. And they settled for almost $800 million. You don't do that if you think you're going to win the lawsuit. You don't do that if the facts are backing you up. At the end of the day, the facts just didn't back them up, and they cost them $800 million. At that point, I don't know if Tucker's was worth the bullshit. I mean, if the bullshit cost him $800 million. I mean, now it wasn't just Tucker. It was a lot of other stuff. And Scott, let me go ahead and I'm going to correct you on that right now. That's a meme that's going out that they didn't lose anything. BlackRock played BlackRock. No, BlackRock does not own Dominion. It's a small cash holding company with assets of less than $1 billion. And I mean, all you have to do is Google who owns Dominion. And you can follow that paper trail back, and guess what? It goes to BlackRock nowhere. I mean, I looked at it. Now, BlackRock may own Fox, but they don't own Dominion. So they didn't pay themselves. And if you can find anything, any proof anywhere to prove me wrong, please do send it to me, and we'll put it out here on the podcast. But I looked up that I actually started peeling back that meme, and everything I peeled back said, no, BlackRock has nothing to do with Dominion. They're owned by a relatively small holding company that only owns portions of 8 or 9 companies. So it is not a big investment company. And if BlackRock does own any of those companies, it's a very small percentage. It is not a controlling interest. But by all means, they own Fox. But I mean, they weren't paying themselves, because to pay themselves, they'd have to own Dominion as well. And so that's one thing I do want to say. I mean, I've when I saw that meme, I said, and it made me ask questions too. But rather than believe the meme and just repost or whatever, I started Googling who owns this, who owns that. And then when it gave me the answers, I went back and said, okay, who owns that company, or who is that company? I went back a couple layers, and nowhere in there was any of the names we normally hear or associate with BlackRock or Vanguard. Because that's the other one I heard in. Welcome, Pat. Glad to see you. Now so that's kind of what went on this week with the elections, Bill. The other one that came up and went through the Senate this week was the agriculture bill, and there was a couple of things on there that I saw that just helped. That was something that I thought was beneficial. One is, before now, Minnesota was one of the only states that was prohibited by law from importing minnows. That has been changed in this omnibus law, so they will be able to import minnows, because we were looking at a shortage for minnows this year for fishing opener in a couple weeks. So that was a big win. And the other one I saw was that for deer hunting, or for hunting as a whole, but specifically for deer hunting, during archery season, you could only use a bow. You were not allowed a crossbow. Crossbows were only allowed during firearm season. That is now being changed. You will be able to use a crossbow during archery season. You know what? One of the things I thought was real funny when I was watching that hearing is one of the senators got up, and I guess he's a doctor, and he's like, "Hey, please pass this bill. I am tired of writing notes to get people permission to go in and get and shoot crossbows instead of bow and arrow, because their shoulders are bad, or because they have this health or that health. Like, lower the bureaucratic mess for me. Please pass this so that I don't have to do that anymore." And I just thought that was huge. Hey, Daniel, I mean, your question on I question whether the vote matters anymore. I mean, that's a fair thing to ask, especially when we start looking at national popular vote. How much does our vote matter? I mean, they say it's a 1-to-1, but if we don't have the same influence as the populations in the cities do, then really, how much does our vote count? Are they going to listen to us if we don't have the masses? I mean, that's part of my argument with there. I mean, when you're talking about electoral college, I mean, those 3 or 4 votes from a small state like South Dakota, they can make a difference. But how much is that going to transfer over when you start talking the popular vote with all of the people? Pat, congratulations with your new crossbow. It looks like you'll be able to use it. Oh yeah, good spring, Scott. Spring has finally sprung. I've been very surprised this year, honestly, with the amount of snow we had. I expected that once this snow started melting, we would have a month and a half of mud. And I don't know how you're looking in your areas, but in my area, we haven't had that issue. We do have some mud, but for the most part, the ground has just soaked it up as fast as it was melting. And what they're telling me, part of the reason for that is we had all that big, heavy snow to begin with, and it insulated the ground. So the ground just did not freeze as far down as it normally would. So once that top layer of the ground started to defrost, there was no ice below that holding the water up. So it was actually able to soak all the way down. Now, whether that's good or bad, you know what? I don't know yet. I know our aquifers after the drought a couple years ago could definitely use the water to restock them. Scott came on and said we need a signature campaign. Let's do it. I'm pro signature, dude. I mean, and that is going to be some things we're going to be looking at in the very near future, especially as it has to do with the Constitutional Republic Party. Our party is going to be meeting with a potential Senate candidate within the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll have something to announce on that fairly soon. Our intention with the the Constitutional Republic Party, whether it's 5 or 10%, is still to go all out on getting a senatorial candidate to reach that goal to become a major party, so that we can then kind of swamp all of the races with our candidates without having to do a signature requirement for every one. That is going to be the best way for us to go out there and show and give the people an option of a real fiscal conservative voice, because we definitely do not have one in Congress right now, or in politics, should I say. So yeah, but yeah, I'm glad spring has gotten here, Scott. It's been a long time coming. I almost had to cancel the show this morning because originally we were thinking with the spring here, we were going to have to drop off a pig at the butcher this morning, but that actually got postponed to either tonight or tomorrow. So I was able to do the show, which I'm very grateful for, because again, with the spring coming, we've been so busy this week between stuff on the farm, between testifying before the Senate. I hadn't had time to send out the message saying the show was going to be canceled or postponed this week. So I'm happy it wasn't. Other media news, or multimedia news, should I say, is starting on Monday at 7 o'clock. I will be joining Jeremy Johnson, who's known as the Disrespected Trucker, and we're going to be doing a weekly Twitter show called A New Path Forward on Twitter Spaces. So if you're not following me on Twitter already, please do so and join us for the show. It's going to be a great experience. I'm good friends with Jeremy, and for those of you who don't know Jeremy, he was a very important cog on the People's Convoy that took over Washington, D.C. He did so much work behind that and pushing that forward. And he asked me last week or week before, hey, what do I need to do to support you in this new party? Because we need another option, because what we have now is not working. And he came up with the idea of having this Twitter Spaces. So I do encourage you, hey, if you're not already, look us up on Twitter, follow us, and join us for this Twitter Spaces at 7 p.m. on Monday evenings. We're actually going to be doing a lot more of this different multimedia shows, I guess you could say. I am not as good at that kind of thing as I would like to be, but everybody's kind of bringing me along, kicking and screaming, going, hey, dude, it's the 21st century. If we're going to make this work, if we're going to do this, we need to go ahead and push this forward, and you need to come into the 21st century. As far as what my Twitter tag is, I am a Travis Bulljohn 1. Again, that's at Travis Bulljohn 1. And since we're talking about Twitter, let's talk about the other big thing on Twitter is the blue check mark. When I ran for Congress, they actually gave me the blue check mark. And then, of course, they came out with Twitter Blue. And they said, okay, we're going to grandfather those who already have their blue check marks. And, of course, in that later change to no, we're going to take all those away. And I found myself in a kind of an awkward situation because I looked at Twitter Blue and I wanted the things Twitter Blue offered. I wanted the ability to edit a tweet. I wanted the ability to have the much longer tweet. But as long as I already had that blue check mark, I would not pay the $8 and get Twitter Blue just out of principle. And of course, this past week they did go ahead and take away the blue check marks. And you know what? I signed up for Twitter Blue because, again, to me, it wasn't because of the blue check mark. It's because I wanted the extra features that came with that blue check mark. And I'm really disappointed that Musk has come back and taken all these high-profile Twitter people who screamed and bloody murder about losing their blue check marks and basically gave it back to them. It's like the value is there. I mean, you're getting your money's worth, $8 a month. Y'all get 1 million followers. Who wouldn't pay $8 a month to maintain 1 million followers who are you're able to give your information and your point of view and influence? I mean, you can't buy stuff like that. So, I mean, for $8 a month, I just for these people who make millions, to bitch about $8 a month, I just didn't understand, and I still don't understand. Granted, I mean, my Twitter is anemic in comparison with like just under 1,000 followers right now. But then again, I also don't play a lot of the "you follow me, I follow you" game, which is how a lot of these people build up their accounts. Because I actually want to be able to see what the people I want to follow, what they have to say. So I guess I just don't follow everybody under the sun. But yeah, so that's what's going on with us. I'm going to start trying to use it now that I have the ability to not be held down to those 140 characters. I'm probably going to use Twitter a lot more than I was before. Because in case you haven't noticed, I can't shut up. So that 140 tweet limit just wasn't working for me, or the 140 letter count limit just didn't work for me very much. Nor did the 280, because I can't keep my thoughts that concise. So that's what's going on right now. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? And how many of y'all have seen the post I made this morning? This post is meant to create discussion, to get people to think. So please don't take it as this is Bull's position. No, this is one of those things I put out there because I want people to actually look at it and think about it and go, okay, would that work? And for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna go ahead and read what I posted this morning. So discussion question for today: can the state require all gun owners to sign up for a state militia and then require all militia members to go through gun safety and training, and it still be within the Second Amendment? Before we go any further on that, we're going to go over what the Second Amendment says. It actually reads in the Constitution, so that people know exactly what we're talking about. Of course, this is the one time I can't find the actual wording. Normally, I just put it in there and bam, there it is. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. So the question on this says, okay, if they're saying, the reason you have a right to bear arms is because of a militia, can they then say, okay, we're going to have a militia, and if you want to be a militia, you're in the militia and have that right you're going to have to sign up if you want your right to bear arms. And I do think it's an interesting concept to ask that question. I mean, because if you follow it literally, I mean, they're saying, yeah, I mean, we're the reason you have this right is to so we can have a well-regulated militia. We're going to have a militia, and we are going to well regulate it by forcing you to have gun safety training. Would that pass muster for the Second Amendment? And I mean, I think it's just, so. Feel free to go on there, put your put your thought process on it, but don't say yes or no. Go on there and tell me why you think the way you do. Tell me why you say it would be correct and why you say it wouldn't be. And also, while you're at it, say, you know what? If you had a candidate who said this was their position, would that be a good faith position? Saying, hey, this is what I truly believe the Second Amendment means, without reading into it, without adding into it. One of the comments I had earlier on the post was we talked about the how this is supposed to the Constitution is not supposed to limit our rights; they're supposed to protect our rights, which I agree with. But I do want to point one thing out that people tend to forget. The Second Amendment talks about a state militia. Originally, the Constitution did not limit the states. It only eliminated the federal government from violating these rights. It said nothing about the states. So this is basically saying the federal government cannot do this, basically because the states have to be able to have a militia to protect the states from the federal government, basically, is what it was for. I mean, look up some of your history. So again, in that context, how does that position hold water? So that's something I'd like y'all to go out and do that, because I put these things out there because I want to encourage discussion. I want to show that we can have adult conversations on this. We can have adult discussions and realize people can have an opinion different than ours. It doesn't make them evil. I mean, if you look at what that position is, there's no gun grabbing in there. There's nothing like that. That is just saying basically, hey, can the state say, if you're going to have a right to bear arms, we want you in our militia, and if you're in the militia, you have to at least have the training so that we can say we are well regulated. Something just to think about. And I agree, Luke. The Federalist paper is a good context for what the intent is. Keep in mind that the Federalist papers are still, though, written by a couple of the founding fathers, so it follows their intent, not necessarily all of the founding fathers' intent. But it does give us a pretty good idea of what the conversation was at that time, to give us that context that I think that we are missing quite a bit within the current system. So that's what's going on, guys. If nobody else has any questions or any concerns, we're right about half an hour, which is a few minutes more than I usually go. I do want to thank y'all for tuning in. Your comments are always welcome. And guys, please realize I'm not just looking for people who agree with me. I have no problem with people coming on here disagreeing. Let's have those conversations. Because again, a lot of times I'll put stuff out there just because I want that conversation to start. I may not be sure what my position is on something, and I want to get input from different views. I want to get some different thought processes. As the chair of the Constitutional Republic Party, I want to be able to get a better feeling on what people believe, so that when we start interviewing and looking at candidates and they say, hey, this is my position on this, then I can kind of figure out, hey, how well is this going to be received? And also is this a legitimate feeling, and does this policy have backing in the Constitution? Is this a bona fide opinion of what they believe the Constitution believes in, and how does that mix with what we believe? So that is definitely something that I am looking into. Hey, Ed, the party in St. Paul. Yeah, I wish I could make it. For those of you who are kind of going on, what's this all about? It's because the marijuana legalization looks like was passed yesterday. I'm not ready to party over it yet. I want to go in there and look through the details a little bit more, and because I still don't know if what actually passed is a good bill. The legalization portion is great, but the question is, does it allow our small businesses to operate, or does it strangle them with regulations that only bigger businesses are going to be able to comply with? At which point, I don't really consider it a win, because again, I'm for the little guy. Yes, it'd be great to be able to legally have it and smoke it and grow your own. But again, if it's all based on protecting big companies over our small local companies, our local producers, I don't consider it a full win. But again, I don't know that, because again, I have to go back and read and see what actually went through. Yeah, and Luke, I've got a few of my own who have the licenses for small businesses for hemp, and they were thinking the same thing a few weeks ago. I don't know if any changes have been made to address their concern. I have a feeling it hasn't. I have a few friends who are in the hemp business. I know who they were saying the taxes on their products were going to skyrocket, because the hemp products were lumped in together and treated the same as marijuana, and it was going to it may have put a few of them out of business, and that's a problem. I mean, that just shows how we should put as little in government's hands as possible, because they're bound to screw it up. Which is why, again, I'm for all 4 short bills, because you can only screw things up so much if you only have so much room. Let's make it a 1-page bill, and if you can't get it done in 1 page, then probably you need to leave it alone. But yeah, Luke, I'm a buddy with Don as well. I saw that he got a job, and he's going to be actually leaving us for the great state of either Arkansas or Texas. He was trying to figure out which one he was going to move to. Don, if you happen to be watching this, Texas has no state income tax. Need I say more? But yeah, as the tobacco stores told you they need a new storefront to sell. I mean, that's probably accurate, because I know in the old bill you had to actually have an airlock before you'd come in. You have to go in one door, they screen you, and then you can come in the second door. From what the bill originally had, and again, I don't know if this is what ended up passing, it would take current stores, and they would have to probably put over $100,000 in investments just to get the store structurally up to what was required with the new law. And again, I don't know how much of this was changed before the final passage. That's why I say I want to go back and look at it. I mean, it's a win in a good fashion, the fact that you can go ahead and grow and smoke your own, that you are not held to that you can do that without having to get it through a regulated business. But again, I think as a whole, government protects too much the big businesses, and our little companies and our small businesses who employ local people and who keep that money in the local communities are usually screwed. So now we're going to go ahead and that's going to be it. That's it for this week, guys. Thank you all for coming on to Independent is Power. And again, remember, the power's with you. The only power government has is what you allow them to have. And it's time for you to make a decision on, are you comfortable with the status quo, or are you ready to send the message? And if you're ready to send the message, hey, come and join us in the Constitutional Republic Party, and we'll get big enough to make them pay attention. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. This is Bull. Have a good one.
Travis Bull Johnson. I'm running for Congress against Michelle Fishbach.
There's no money in ending war. There's no money in limiting government. To me, part of what makes America great are our small businesses, our small farms, and that's what's getting squeezed out by the establishment politicians.
That's why I say, raise cattle and not taxes. And my name's Travis Bull Johnson.